Hi everyone, and welcome to Mind Aids. I have been observing that during this pandemic, with the evolution of online classes and online social gatherings, children are the ones who are finding new ways to keep themselves occupied. While many children are doing this productively, parents are definitely complaining that children and teens are coming up with several issues like temper tantrums, being idle, disobedience, violence at home, misusing electronic gadgets, and even cyberbullying. As I always say, one or two incidents of these may not be such a cause for alarm, but isn't it better to be vigilant rather than to be sorry when the situation worsens? Now, I recently watched a mini-series called Defending Jacob. For those of you who haven't seen it, I recommend that you do watch it. Defending Jacob tells the story of a lawyer and his family who have to deal with the accusation that their 14-year-old son may be a murderer. This is based on a novel of the same name. Now, I hadn't read the novel, so I don't actually know, or I didn't know if the 14-year-old son was guilty or not. Now, as I was watching the miniseries, thanks to the brilliant performance of Jaden Martell as the 14-year-old Jacob, I realized that I have met children like him. Majority of such children do turn up in our clinics with complaints ranging from a pervasive lack of emotions to serious violent behavior. Most parents, like Jacob's parents and the victim's parents in the mini-series, find it very difficult to believe that their children are capable of any violence or any misbehavior. The truth, however, is that children don't actually become aggressive or disobedient out of the blue. In most cases, there are always subtle signs that indicate that someone is spiraling downwards. At least some parents do seek help for their children. Many parents don't even want to consider the possibility that their children may be spiraling into something worse. My child would never do something like that, is what I have heard parents say most of the time, especially when the behavior happens outside home or away from their eyes. This ignorance or this refusal to observe children carefully and seek help may lead to serious consequences that cannot be controlled. The earlier something is handled, the better. Now, what can you do to reduce violence or misbehavior in your children or teens? You don't actually have to be a parent or a direct caregiver for you to be able to help. The first step to helping is, of course, to identify certain behaviors or emotions which may be indicators that a child may be developing some serious behavior or personality problems. So you may have guessed that the topic up for discussion today is the warning signs that could indicate that your children may develop a serious behavior problem in the future. Defiance or disobedience. You may have come across some children who argue a lot with authority figures or with adults. There are some who actively refuse to obey rules or any authority figures. Sometimes they do the opposite of what is told to them. Now, this is a fairly normal behavior, but when it is uncontrollable and happens all the time, this disobedience becomes a problem behavior. One more thing to watch out is for a blaming tendency. If your child is always blaming others for his or her mistakes or misbehavior, this may lead to a more serious personality issue. Now, you know that without taking responsibility for our mistakes, we will never learn anything, and that we will develop a wrong sense of morality, where always the other person is wrong and it's never my fault, and so the other person deserves to be ill-treated. Severe temper outbursts. Losing their temper and becoming irritated is also a very common behavior in children, but when this happens all the time and when it results in serious damages to a person or property, severe anger can be a warning sign for later problems. Vindictiveness. This means a desire for revenge. You may have noticed that some children and also some adults like to take revenge and get back at others for something that may have annoyed them. The desire for revenge is definitely something that has to be discouraged. The revenge can range from deliberately irritating or annoying others to more dangerous kinds like stealing or hitting or destroying property. If you notice this more often than not, remember that this is a behavior that definitely needs correction. Manipulation and lying. If your child frequently lies to get something or to avoid punishment, this may develop into more serious issues. Now, manipulation is more common in late childhood or teenage. For example, some children learn that if they lie or if they cry in front of their teachers and parents after doing something wrong, then they won't have to face severe consequences. Some children and teenagers are smart enough to devise manipulative ways to get what they want and to avoid what they don't want. In such cases, this behavior needs to be studied to understand the motives and the depth of this problem. A lack of empathy. Empathy means being able to understand another person's emotions and to be able to identify with them. In the early childhood, it is very common to see that children don't regard others' feelings or desires, and most often when they are corrected and as they grow up, they will develop the sense of empathy. However, if you notice that even after correction, your child is unconcerned about your feelings or others, it is not going to be a good sign. They may have less affection for others. They may be more concerned with the effects of their actions on themselves rather than their effects of their actions on others. And even when their actions harm others, they may not be that bothered. Lack of guilt or lack of remorse. This is a serious warning sign. Children are most likely to feel guilty and sad when their mistakes are pointed out. But when a child never feels bad or guilty about doing something wrong, it could be a sign that they have a flawed sense of morality. Now, morality is a complex concept that fully develops only later on, but subtle signs like a lack of guilt and remorse could be a sign that the child needs more help in developing their moral side. You may have also seen that some children express remorse only if they are caught or if they are facing punishment. Even this is a problematic issue. It points to the fact that they are not concerned about doing something wrong unless they are caught. It later on leads to the attitude that if you aren't caught, then you can keep doing the wrong thing. They may not make amends for their behavior, and this needs to be nipped in the bud. Lack of fear of punishment. We just talked about children who may show remorse only when they are expecting punishment. Now imagine a child who is not scared of punishment. This is an even more serious issue. Rewards and punishment have a great role in shaping our personalities from an early age. Now imagine if there is no effect of punishment on children. Children and teenagers who are not scared of punishment or negative consequences will go looking for risky or dangerous activities. Now, just because they're not scared of punishment, it doesn't mean that they don't like rewards. It only means that they may do anything to get something that they like, but also they don't care what happens to them or the others in the process. Shallow emotions or shallow relationships. In Defending Jacob, in the very beginning, Jacob's parents are discussing a vacation. They say that Jacob is never emotionally expressive and he never shows closeness to them or anything. So when Jacob comes into the picture, we can clearly see that he doesn't express many emotions. His face is aloof most of the times. He doesn't have any close friends and he doesn't have any special bond with his parents. My warning bells went off in the beginning itself. If you notice that your child does not express feelings or show emotions to others, you may have tried to help him to come out of that shell. Now, some children are reserved temperamentally. They are shy and don't prefer many relationships. Even if children are shy, they will be attached to at least one parent or sibling or grandparent. But having no special affection for even one person in the world is definitely a warning sign. Again, this pattern of shallow relationships or emotions may be indicative of a lack of empathy or guilt or even consideration for others. Unconcerned about performance at school or work. The extension of shallow emotions in children is that they are not concerned about their performance. If your child repeatedly and always shows a lack of concern about their poor or problematic performance at school, at work, or in other important activities, then you may have to watch out. Such children may not put any effort to perform well, and because of a lack of fear of punishment, they may not even be bothered to do any work. They may even blame others repeatedly for their poor performance. Irresponsibility. The lack of concern about their performance may translate into irresponsible behavior. As they grow up, they may be irresponsible at work and thus switch jobs frequently, or they may be unemployed for a long period of time. They may also be financially irresponsible, like having a lot of debts and failing to support those who are dependent on them. Watch out for those who are persistently irresponsible. Self-centered. Egocentrism, or being concerned with only their selves, is a prominent feature of very young children. They only begin to include others as they grow up. But even after they are grown up, if they are self-centered, you may have a problem at hand. Some children have such an inflated and arrogant self-appraisal that they feel like they're not ordinary and ordinary work and people are too less for them. This will progress into adulthood as an insufferable problem. Now, all these that we discussed are very subtle warning signs. Let us discuss some not so subtle warning signs that you should look out for. Aggression towards others, animals, or property is always a problematic behavior. If you've noticed that your child bullies or threatens others, always starts fights with others, has used a weapon like a bat or a knife or brick, etc., that can cause serious physical damage to others, has been physically cruel to people or to animals. If you've noticed that your child destroys their own or others' property deliberately by setting fire to it or throwing or breaking stuff, these are serious and not so subtle warning signs. Have you observed any of these signs in your children or dear ones? If so, do not hesitate to seek help and remedy these problem behaviors. I repeat again, 1 or 2 instances is not a cause for alarm, but if any one of these signs occur continuously, repeatedly, and despite persistent correction, then it is definitely a cause for concern. If caught early, it may be possible to correct these problem behaviors. I hope you've been finding all our videos informative. If you have any queries, you could email us or you could drop a comment in the box below. For more videos like this, like, share and subscribe to our channel, Mind Aids. Do not forget to hit the bell icon for our latest notifications and updates. Thank you and have a blessed day.